Уважаемые господа, добрый день. И я рада приветствовать вас на этой сессии, которая называется «Государство и бизнес. Как снять существующие барьеры». У нас сегодня такой немножко необычный формат, потому что организаторы попробовали провести это в режиме кейс-стади, то есть мы будем изучать опыт конкретных предпринимателей. И поэтому, если у вас в зале существуют вопросы, вы, пожалуйста, обращайтесь к нам, поднимайте руку. Я вижу всех, хотя, может быть, не всем видно наших сегодняшних спикеров, но я надеюсь, будет слышно. И я со своей стороны постараюсь оперативно реагировать на реплики из зала. Итак, сегодня в нашей дискуссии принимают участие Владимир Efimov, министр правительства Москвы, руководитель департамента городского имущества города Москвы, с левой стороны от меня, Сергей Недоросlev, сопредседатель общероссийской общественной организации «Деловая Россия», Сергей Георгиевич, Борис Юрьевич Титов, уполномоченный при президенте Российской Федерации по защите прав предпринимателей, Томаш Телма, директор по Европе и Центральной Азии Международная финансовая корпорация, и Андрей Шабанов, заместитель руководителя департамента города Москвы по конкурентной политике. И, конечно же, Xenia Ryasova, тот самый предприниматель, опыт которого мы сегодня для начала будем рассматривать. Xenia у нас президент компании FinFlair. Итак, тема, которую мы сегодня обсуждаем, это как снять существующие барьеры между государством и бизнесом. Согласитесь, тема абсолютно не новая, и, наверное, с начала времен современной России в медиа, в обществе обсуждаются данные вопросы. Но это не новая тема и для международного опыта. Именно поэтому у нас сегодня присутствует Томаш Телма. Томаш, и давайте для начала дискуссии посмотрим, скажите вашу точку зрения и поделитесь международным опытом. Только если очень можно, кратко. Понятно, что государство старается сделать всегда климат для работы предпринимателей наиболее комфортным, успешным. Но находит ли это всегда свои результаты? Реально ли видят предприниматели улучшения?
Спасибо. Я все-таки попробую это на английском. I hope you can hear me. To the extent that we can have a discussion later on in Russian, that may be a little bit easier for me, but I'll make a few introductory remarks in English. First of all, to say what is International Finance Corporation. We are a part of the World Bank Group that's working with private sector development in emerging markets across the world. So essentially, our general approach to supporting SMEs, small and medium-sized enterprises, is through providing financing. We identified access to finance as one of the biggest barriers to development of private sector. The other major barrier is regulation. And as I understand, the subject of today's discussion is going to focus on how governments, how regulatory bodies can work with the existing regulations in order to help companies succeed and flourish. There is a report that for the past 11 years, World Bank Group has been preparing. It's called Doing Business Report. And this is a report that compares 10 or 11, depending on the year, different indices on how different regulatory regimes help a company work or not work in its daily life. I'm going to read off those 11 indices, as this is how Russian Federation and 188 other countries across the world are being ranked. And that is starting a business, dealing with construction permits, getting electricity, registering property, getting credit, protecting investors, paying taxes, trading across borders, enforcing contracts, and resolving insolvency and employing workers. So each year, about 189 countries from Afghanistan to Zimbabwe around the world are being ranked across this kind of matrix. Now, why are we even talking about this? And I think this is the key for the discussion today. We have a general statistical experience and knowledge that good business regulation contributes to overall economic performance. That means that strengthening the business regulatory environment has a significant impact on the overall performance of firms and economies through its effect on economic growth, on productivity, and innovation. So, we have a positive correlation between labor productivity in manufacturing and services and their ranking in the Doing Business report. We can say that trade leads to higher living standards in economies with flexible regulatory environments. We can say that the aggregate doing business indicator is positively associated with a product and process innovation for young firms in non-OECD countries. And we can also say that high entry costs increase the size of the informal economy and decrease job creation. So that means that to the extent one can attack those particular areas, the 11 of the doing business ranking, one can address the different obstacles to the economic growth and economic performance of firms. Three principles that we have found through this 11 years of research that work the best. One, the limited face-to-face interactions between business and regulatory bodies help to improve business environment. That means the more interactions, the more difficult it is for companies to succeed. And we can talk about more about this in discussion. The second principle is that making rules clear and unambiguous makes it easier for businesses to succeed. That means that the rules are unclear and ambiguous. That means that they can be interpreted in many different ways, and there is room for abuse, corruption, non-transparency. And finally, the third principle is that keeping the rules of the game stable is really important for companies to succeed. As we know, SMEs, small, medium-sized enterprises, do not always have the ability to hire consultants, lawyers to help them deal with all these changes. So even if the rules are not perfect, even if they need to be changed every now and then, it's really important to keep them stable. So I'll stop here. This is the body of experience of 11 years of doing business ranking, and we can go into more detail in the discussion. Thank you.
Спасибо большое, Томаш. Но действительно, борьба с
Thanks a lot, Tomasz. In fact, combating corruption and non-transparency in the recent 1 or 2 years has become one of the core directions of our government, including Moscow government. Here now we have two representatives of Moscow government, and they will brief you how Moscow businessmen work. The doing business rating is based on Moscow indicators in many ways. In the recent 2 years, Russia has made a big breakthrough. It's now ranked 92 in the doing business category, as compared to the previous 112th place. And I would like to give the floor now to the representative of Finflare company, Xenia Ryasova. In spite of the title, this is a Russian taxpayer and a Russian resident company and a Russian chain. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. The mic is slightly inconvenient. I'm glad to welcome you here. Thank you for coming here to listen about the problems of businessmen. I will try to be brief. Clearly, the current situation is highly difficult. The dollar and the euro rate is growing. The situation in Ukraine is unclear. The economic stagnates, and the expectations of the society are negative. I can speak on behalf of all clothing retailers, not only for myself, that the purchasing power is going down. We mainly manufacture in Russia, but I mentioned already that sewing manufacturing facilities and the textile manufacturing is highly inconvenient in Russia because many people expect high salaries after leaving schools, while textile industry presumes that the labor is very monotonous, and nobody is willing to do that in Russia. Therefore, our manufacturing facilities are placed in Bangladesh, in India, Vietnam, and other similar countries where people are ready to work for low salaries. And all our contracts are made in foreign currency. The president and the government, on the one hand, claim that we need to curb inflation. On the other hand, it's our role, and we pay customs duties, we pay for products in hard currency in foreign currency, and still we need to preserve our prices in rubles. I mean the prices for our products, and they should be equal to our prices as of last year. This is a next to impossible task. The margin is minimum. The profitability ratio has gone down. We have no reserves for that. The government probably could fix the dollar rate to pay our customs duties, and if so, our retail prices would not grow. As to the WTO accession, the customs duties in fact have gone down, but still they're much higher than in EU countries, and the rate of foreign currency is growing. Also, we would like to have predictable rules of the game that could be of great help too. The economic instability does not really favor this trend. We have just been discussing one episode. I rent some site from the government of Moscow. There's a small shop with the area of about 30 square meters. Recently, I received a notification that they were going to increase the rental rate threefold, by 2/3. And on the 10th of March, after we have done renovations, we are supposed to pay by 10% more. It's related to the euro to ruble rate, but in this case, what can we do about it? And I'm really at a loss. What about the rent? The compound rent in European countries is about 42.6%, while in Russia it's much more. The capital flows out of the country, not only due to corruption. Corruption was even stronger 10 years ago, but the main reason is the fact that it's unprofitable. If it could be used profitably here, no one would leave, even in a most corrupted country. We're just trying to survive, and nobody dreams about former profits, like back in 2000s, before 2008. Also, we would like to have equal rules of the game. I mean, we should be in an equal situation with foreign companies in terms of renting. We know that many trading centers do not pay any rent at all. Sometimes they have a very low rate. Sometimes the lessors are responsible for repairs and renovation, but they pay taxes in their own countries, while we pay taxes in Russia, and we pay a profit tax too. But the conditions for our countries are to be equal. It's logical. The same refers to the price of land. It has gone up. And in 2013, the growth was quite significant and noticeable. Sometimes it was even inadequate. It may depend on some particular manager who indicates some ratios, and he takes them somewhere from his head, while all should depend on the exact location like whether this is a central street or a side street or anything like that. Another important issue to mention is, and we didn't have any preliminary discussion, is advertising materials and street advertising. You probably know Ashan companies and other retail companies. If we had a banner somewhere in central Moscow, it means that we would have to dismantle it, take it away now, because it costs millions of rubles. And if we took it away, where would we take money from? This is real money. It all reduces the profitability of business, and we are no longer willing to invest into that. We discussed it with the government of Moscow. We discussed that resolution, but nobody listened to us. They still issued that resolution on outdoor advertising. I must tell you that businessmen are interested in to make advertising proper. All banners and other materials must be accurate, must be proper, and so on. Moscow should look beautiful. I agree with that. But in this case, they should consult us. But they should not pass any instructions on us. And finally, just a brief comment on inspectorates that inspect stores, trading centers. They may require any document starting from a customs declaration, a passport of any employee, a price list, or any other document. I think we should digitalize all these documents because it requires lots of input, lots of man-hours, and if we had a unified digital system for the whole chain, that would help us and that would allow us to optimize business process. That's all in brief. I have mentioned, I think, all sore points, and I would be glad if you could comment on that. Thank you, Xenia. I think many issues have been raised. Let us start with a specialized and still a sore point, which is the rates of rent. Let's address this question to Mr. Efimov, who represents the Department of City Property Head in Moscow government. Well, dear participants, our department deals with the rent of sites in Moscow, and we pursue the policy which aims to create equal conditions for all in the market. What about the rental rates? In fact, last year we recalculated the rates, and all those possessing the premises exceeding 30,000 square meters had higher rates. Later on, we created equal conditions for all. This was done in 2013. As to the current year, we have the rate of 3,000. It's for the tenants of the premises exceeding 30,000 square meters, and the rates for others are lower. And also, we have an intersector commission for the companies that belong to some socially significant sphere. We have 322 enterprises belonging to this category, and about 1.5 thousand businessmen, entrepreneurs, will be transferred on the 1st of July to the market rate of rent.
The rules of the games should be fair and should be informed in advance. That's why we made a decision preliminary so that the businessmen now can plan the activity. Besides, in October, on our website, we had the calculator, and using your number of the agreement, you could check the market rate for the agreement for the current year. This is the rate which will be applied starting from the 1st of June for those who don't have preferential treatment. Why this rate of 3.5 thousand rubles? Before we had 1.8 thousand, but we analyzed the market conditions, and actually 3.5 thousand rubles is below the market in all the districts, excluding some districts outside of the Moscow area and some basement premises. For all other premises, this rate is considered to be a preferential rate, and we used this specific figure, which is the average for all the different districts of Moscow. We took this decision, and now we are moving forward. We can't say that we will abandon this preferential rate for businessmen. As for land plots, then I'd like to note that we had a growth of rental rates, and it was different for different land plots as a result of the fact that in 2012 we made the cadastral assessment of all the land plots. I'd also like to highlight that we didn't have such an assessment since 2007. The average growth for Moscow was 30 to 40%. Of course, for some land plots, the growth was higher. And this was a result of the fact that during the cadastral assessment, we analyze the changes in infrastructure around the specific land plot. For example, metro stations, roads, and so on. And the facilities on a specific land plot also affect the rate. That's why some of the land plots, their price went up more substantially. The total sum of rental payments has increased, as I mentioned before. What are the next steps? We're planning to assess land plots every year to make sure businesses don't have unpleasant surprises. Of course, you're not happy to see major hikes in the rental price. That's why we are planning to assess the land plots every year. This year, the increase was in line with inflation and a bit below the growth in the prices of real estate properties in Moscow. I have one question. I'm trying to listen to you very carefully. Xenia, you should use the microphone. Okay, maybe I'm not wise enough. When I made an agreement with the city, we are a small standard company. We are not a medium-sized company. As for small companies, okay, I'm ready to check your address. Our annual increase in price is more or less in line with the increase of the inflation. So in the last year, the increase was 6.7%. That's why I'm ready to check your situation. I can't understand how you had this major increase, threefold increase in your rental price. Okay, now coming back to the question of Tomasz and Xenia with regards to rules and transparency. Of course, we are paying a lot of attention to transparency. All the services of our department are strictly limited by necessary regulations. Our department now has 16 types of services, and you can get 13 of those services electronically through our website. There is a positive dynamics in the number of inquiries through the website. Of course, there is still much to be desired, and we'd like to see more businessmen coming for our services through the internet. But the number of such inquiries last year was 600. Of course, it's not a lot, because the total number of inquiries is more than 30,000. But still, we see the positive dynamics, and we hope that this year, we'll see more use of our website. We have very strict rules for providing different types of services, and for situations when we stop providing some types of services. So, for example, for some of the supplementary services from Cadastre Chamber or Rosregister, all the terms to refuse the service to a certain businessman are also very well documented and regulated. There are some instances in which you can go to court if you're not happy with our decision. When businessmen go to court, less than 20% were considered to be unjustified by the court. And I can say that only about 50 to 12% of refusals are reviewed by the courts. That's why, in total, I would say that more or less, almost all of our decisions are fair and are not disputed through the court. I have a question. Transparency is improving. I can see this clearly. If the cadastre rate is increasing year on year, then rental rates, as a result, are going to grow year on year too. That's why we need to be ready for this in advance. Is it correct? Cadastre assessment is in line with the market situation. And sometimes the rental rate goes down after such an assessment. And in total, the cadastre assessment should be in line with the market. And if market is going down, then the rates will be declining as well. Asking to the Xenia's question, not all the terms and conditions are taken into account when doing the assessment. I agree with her, and now we are developing the methodology for such an assessment on a mass scale. We want to factor in more criteria for such assessments so that the cadastre price is as close to the real market price as possible. Thank you very much. I have a lot of comments. So, for example, the possibility that the price of the land in Moscow is going to be declined. We actually don't have a lot of examples like that. I wouldn't believe in this. Could you comment, please?
Не последовало. Но я хочу сказать.
Okay, my main comment is the following. Business relies on the state to a major extent, not only on the macro level. So, for example, yesterday I had a meeting with extremely wise people, and one of them said the following. When we are solving historical tasks and we have historical objectives, we take into account ideological, historical, and social matters. We don't talk about economy and businesses, but now we see very clear response from the stock market, price of indices, and in the willing of investors to continue negotiations. We had only just one signal. We didn't have any actual steps taken. There are three levels of regulating the economy: the macro level, the role of the government in developing the market; medium level, I'm talking about industry level, for example, and micro level, rents, land plots, agreements, procurement, and so on. And the government needs to have a very good policy for all three levels, because the state depends on the business. If business prospers, then the state has a lot of income, and vice versa. Unfortunately, apart from the real business, the state also gets profit from export of mineral resources. This is very important. We need to have very good business climate for this industry, because this is the main source of income for the government in our country. That's why regulating private businesses, those who work in the field, they are of not the major importance for the state. That's why even if we have a proper, well-regulated, systemic business task, but if the state is monopolistic on the market, then business has to play the second role, has to rely on the state, because the state doesn't depend on medium businesses as much as it depends on the mineral resources sector. That's why for the state it doesn't matter that much how many clothing shops we have in the city. It used to be efficient until some point in history, but in the future this interdependence probably will not exist. In times of major changes, we can't keep working under the old model. Of course, there is another alternative. We could create the administrative and command systems. But in such a system and such type of an economy, we don't need private shops at all. For now, it would be better to start focusing on goals of the business. We need to change the model completely. We need to have good models for supporting businesses. Under the management systems which are widespread in the world, we need to have a different model, a new model. We need to not simply trying to earn, to get profit from businesses. We need to develop businesses. So the number of good clothing shops in Moscow is important, and the income from rent is not of that importance. This should be like this. And until we think in this way, we are not going to be successful. Thank you very much, Mr. Titov. Xenia, in the beginning, made a proposal. I'm not sure if it is realistic or not, but you are presidential commissioner for entrepreneurs' rights. So what do you think? Is it realistic to fix customs payments which are done in foreign currency, the exchange rate for such payments? Unfortunately, I'm not in the know. I didn't know that customs payments depend on the currency exchange rate. So the state knows how to earn, is not going to lose out here, and actually this is nonsense. Our state has rubles, and we need to work on the basis of rubles. We have a lot of other problems with customs, for example, as customs assessments. Now customs dictate what is the price of imported goods. Okay, but I hear you, and I'm not the only one who commissioner. We have this dedicated commissioner for customs. He is a great expert in this sphere, and we'll ask him to review this matter. I agree this issue is very important now. We are experiencing major historical changes, and I hope that the exchange rate stabilizes in the recent future. But we all know that in such difficult times, major changes are possible, and regulation is of paramount importance during such times. That's why we see the decline in exchange rate. The state should use some offsetting measures. If it simply focuses on its own income, it's not correct. One of the major errors in our financial policy, which affects the economic policy as a whole, is the fact that the state budget is the main thing for us. We need to focus on the budget of the country, which includes budgets of households, budgets of businessmen, because our main goal is to increase the number of assets in the country. But we are focusing on the state's budget. Okay, we will try to review your medium issue you've mentioned. We'll do our best. We are talking about trade, medium businesses. There is another major market, the market of state procurement. Now I'm giving the floor to Mr. Shabanov, Deputy Department Head, Moscow Department for Competition Policy. This department is controlling state procurement in Moscow. Is it true that you have up to 1,000 deals every day? Yes, that's true. Now we have a lot of transactions. This is actually a huge number of deals. 1,000 of businessmen can get a contract with the state every day. I think a lot of you businessmen know our system. We have an automatic processes. It's all digitalized. Today I'd like to tell you about our new portal, the portal of suppliers, so that you could have some illustrative material. Please open my presentation. Okay, it's here, it's ready. Portal for suppliers. After we've created this portal, we demolished one of the barriers related to small businesses. According to Law 24, enacted last year, huge funds were spent for minor contracts on procurement. And we couldn't actually assess the total budget, and we couldn't clearly say who were the end suppliers. But it was clearly difficult to understand the system, and small businesses couldn't check who their competitors are. That's why we wanted to create such an information platform which would show the information on all the procurement contracts and which would digitalize procurement. There were a lot of documents. That's why we wanted to eliminate one barrier for small businesses. Now small businesses will be able to address the clients starting from the 25th of February. This portal is now active. We did a pilot project with the educational department of Moscow. There were several thousand of clients, educational establishments, schools, and so on. After launching this portal, any businessman who has the electronic signature can access this portal and free of charge, this businessman could make a proposal of services. The client was immediately getting information on these proposals and services of this small businessman. After that, it was possible to make a contract online. These graphs, they show the number of contracts. The pilot project lasted until September. We had 7,000 suppliers registered there, and by the end of last year, we have now 18,000 suppliers. A lot of small businesses. We have 237 contracts, and the total sum of contracts is 16 billion.
So that was the market which opened in Moscow for medium and small business. As I told you, the mechanism is quite simple. Any supplier may enter this portal, place his proposals and offers. Any client may choose what he wants, put all that into his digital basket, and finally offer to make a contract with this particular supplier. But we developed the system even further. This portal now has information of all procurement in Moscow, and not only state procurement, but other too. And not only in the actual stage, but also in the stage of planning. Now we have, if a customer is going to buy something in 3 years' time, this information will be reflected now, and there are documents on that too. You can see the information on property and problems with the property, and the property which Moscow owns, including all real estate, all rents, and all things that can be leased or rented, including the search and criteria and everything. All information and the search engines are available. We have the information on the bidding and bidding on the rent, privatization, and so on. All Moscow is going digital this year. You can get all information on state procurement in internet and participate in this process, including land bidding. You will see the amount. This is the amount of 16 billion rubles. This is the amount, the total amount that has passed through the portal. And of them, about 6 billion is the share of small business. This is quite a big figure, and this is an opportunity for them to receive additional state funding. You have mentioned that the system of bidding is going digital now, and I have a question, though probably it's not directly your responsibility. Did you hear something about, and Xenia mentioned that, do you plan to digitalize all certificates, reports, permits? Are you working on that too? Moscow is doing that. So there are, and the relevant departments may give you an exact answer on their work. But our bidding committee is doing everything in the digital form. Probably just a couple of documents still work in a paper form. The rest has gone digital, and you can get all information at the website in the digital form. So it means that you don't have to go anywhere to get information. Also, there's a specialized website of state-owned services. All services offered in Moscow by governmental structures are represented at this website. So you can order a service, read the information on a service. This was probably or you can make an appointment, supply an application, and so on, request a service, etc. As to the documents, one of the options is to place the contracts with monopolists at the website of suppliers, in which case, for instance, this may be a contract on water supply, so it will all be done in the digital form, and it means that you may only work with monopolists in the digital form. Let's take a question from the floor. Microphone, please. Please take the mic and introduce yourself. Microphone, please. Please use the microphone. The equipment doesn't work. Can you hear me? Microphone, please. Yes, indeed, this seems quite interesting, but I feel strange here. I feel a stranger. Here's a representative of a clothing company, Finflare. I think that there should be some fruitful, this forum should come up with some promising idea. I can't see what the government of Moscow thinks about the future. I have the background of a businessman, and my products are in demand worldwide. The same applies to Finflare. If your products are not in demand in Russia, they should be in demand in China and other countries. So the crisis gives us a good opportunity. We can take an enterprise like a trading company and so on, and the experts should decide jointly with entrepreneurs how much they spend, their costs, and calculate all other flows. In this case, it will become clear that normal business can't really work in Moscow and in Russia. Either an enterprise has to break the law or to incur losses. And if the government needs, the government shouldn't reduce, you don't have to reduce taxes or do something special. I think a company will survive if it has clients, even in spite of the problems with equipment, real estate, and so on. Now, Moscow, microphone please, microphone, pays lots of attention to business incubators and other similar establishments. But what is your question, please, actually? What is your question? Could you please refrain from talking about business incubators, your opinion? Next time probably we'll invite you to be one of the panel. But I think that all these incubators, microphone please, is certainly a good thing. And the ones that will survive will leave the incubators and Russia. That's all I said. Thanks a lot. Thank you so much. But I think the incubators are meant to create and develop business. Microphone, please. Please, microphone. I think that we have an interesting discussion here. Everything seems to be wonderful, and in the beginning, you said that the government... Microphone, please. We do not manufacture. We outsource suppliers. We have about 500 suppliers. We have manufacturing facilities worldwide, and we order products where it's profitable. Microphone, please. Microphone, please. We're told that the government targets industrial manufacturing. But what is the real situation? And we would like the plenipotentiary for the commissioner for entrepreneurs' rights to take care of that. There are many unnecessary things now, like the power costs for small business, the taxes, and so on. Let me also mention the actions taken by the regulators and inspectorates. And we really had to provide work to them. We need to stop that at some point. The crisis is over, but we're still increasing the rates. No one now. There are some programs that are developed by the Ministry of Industry and other institutions. You have mentioned the incubators that you do not like, and so the person who was speaking about incubators has left. Probably he is resenting. But also we have industrial parks. What's the problem about them? It's not the matter of small quantity, it's the matter of quality. Recently, I visited Stavropol area, and there are no investors there. So far, today, you know, there are things which are on the top and there are things at the bottom. So right now we're starting from the top, which is business climate. In a way, we are building a safe and comfortable motorway. That's true in some way, but we do not provide cheap petrol and other good conditions for driving. This is a good example showing what we're doing. I mean that we're creating industrial banks and other institutions. We're drafting roadmaps and so on. So we are creating favorable conditions for business. However, we don't pay due attention to security and other things. We neglect corruption in a way, and well, I'm a businessman at heart, so I understand many of their problems. I think many tariffs must be frozen, and this is a major solution that could radically change the decision of many people to close their business. The tariffs had been growing rapidly, exceedingly rapidly, and at some point the government froze them, which was an extremely important decision. We know about the problems of the energy sector on the other hand, and I don't mean all enterprises. For some, this was a very important decision. Still, we need to change the whole system, including tariffs, interest rates, and other parameters. We had a successful model of economic development. Now we should develop a new model. We really should do that, because currently our economy leaves much to be desired. We already have some priorities. We need some proper industrial platform. We can't survive with the old model, but so far we don't have efficient, clear-cut tools to do it. And could you add something about that matter? What about Delovaya Rossiya? Do you have some specific business proposals to incentivize the industrial policy in Russia? Well, let me continue. I think he is right in many ways. Manufacturing as a part of economy is different from services. The services and trading are highly important for the general economy, and they have a different structure, including production costs, profitability, and the required elements to support them. Let's take a production cycle of high-tech products, for instance. The size of an enterprise, whether it is small or big, doesn't matter, or maybe it's huge. But, for instance, the production of methane, or the manufacturing metal products, requires short and cheap money. In other cases, Xenia disagrees, probably. She has round eyes. Well, if you belong to the manufacturing business, it's one thing. But let's talk about retail that have billions of dollars turnover, and the turnover period is 14 days. They have a different structure. And let's look at the production cycles in Moscow, which is a huge center. You will see that the volume of production is bigger than in Moscow region, and so on. So there are three key things for all. The first one is the access to money. Like in the case with the motorway, which has been mentioned. That's why we need to provide support in lending. Everyone should have access to money. We can't survive really without radical changes in the general financial system. If we want to get orders, to get clients, we really need to change the whole system. Now the cash flow in Russia is insufficient. You can turn to any bank if you want to take loans, but sometimes it's extremely difficult. You need to have some securitization and to have pledges, and the policy of the central bank is very tough. It is declared and it is enacted. That's why most of enterprises do not have access to long and cheap money. So the first required prerequisite is funding and access to money. The second is a proper infrastructure. I think the situation in Moscow is not ideal. However, many things have been done already. I think we need many different forms of support, including incubators, and Moscow does that as well as other cities. So I would sum it up. It's infrastructural support. And finally, it has been mentioned already, it's profit. Because any business is after profit. It's not like a research which is done for the sake of curiosity. Here you have to make money, and it means that it should be and must be profitable. Let me recall one of the plants which was quoted in internet. There was a comparison in one of live journals between a Canadian and a similar Russian plant. One of the plants, Russian plants, was supposed to be merged with another one, but they couldn't do this merger because of the distance. They were going to do it for long, but they couldn't because something did not work in their calculations. So I agree that we need a roadmap, that we need to put forward the businessman's initiative, but it's all time-consuming. Thank you. But what should this businessman do during these 5 or 10 years? Just sit idle dreaming about something?
I support the previous speaker, and I'd like to say that until the state wants to develop businesses and until the state wants to help it, I'm talking about small and medium businesses, I'm not talking about major oil companies and large companies. We should ask Mr. Titov to address the heads of a state and explain them that we need to take urgent measures and in helping medium and small businesses. I'm the head of the consulting company, and I see that in the reality, my clients are going to go bust in the next 6 months. We need to make sure that the state doesn't interfere. Maybe support is going too far here. I had one client who applied the Moscow property department. He wanted to buy his premises. The state was extremely high. He couldn't buy it, and with the help of my services, we managed to push this price down, and he successfully bought his premises. There are a lot of cases like this. Prices are exorbitant, 3 or 2 times higher than the actual market price. They come to me and they have to go to court against the Moscow property department. Until we want to make sure that businesses generate the major income for the government, we will have just talks, but we are not going to see the results. So now it looks like we are simply watching TV, but people on the panel, they don't hear us. I want to be heard, and I'm asking you for support, for help. Small businesses are suffering, and I can see that my clients are leaving the country. And personally, I don't want to leave Russia. I want to work for the benefit of this country. I want to earn, I want to get good results here. All my life is in this country. My friends are saying, Ruslan, it's time to leave. I'm trying to argue we could try to change something, but why do something? I'm asking for renting premises. I get very high rates. Foreign companies have preferential treatment. This was a surprise to me to hear about it today actually. So let's speed up our efforts. Now we have representatives of the Moscow government. Could you please help us? Could you please address the heads of state? Portal is very good, but satellites manufactured in Russia are falling from the sky, and this means that what you are doing actually is not working, and this portal is not working. I several times tried to address you in trying to get some auditor services through the portal, but it's not possible to have very good quality services, auditing services for a large company for 100,000 rubles. There are some illegal methods, such as proposing 50,000 rubles, but then every additional service is a paid-up service. Okay, I understand there are a lot of sore points. It looks like every businessman in this hall has a lot of sore points. Okay, I agree. The state leaders don't hear everything, but we keep informing them about the problems. For example, businesses are doing a lot, helping us voicing their concerns, and we are also doing a lot. For example, we've created roadmaps. We are trying to reduce the number of days necessary to get the approval for the construction. Probably we don't have a lot of result yet, but it's too early. Next result for this institute, important was the following. We are preparing the report for the president. Under the law, we have to make such a report. For the first time, this will be a formalistic paper prepared by my department, and the state will be reviewing this on a formal level. Before we were simply writing some letters of notification. Now this process is better documented. It's more regulated. We've completed 2,000 analyses on different issues, and we always have new problems, new ideas. Even today, I've taken down 2 problems I've heard here. We are asking you to participate in this work. On the 15th of April, for example, we have the federal situational analysis, so-called SETAN. And when we have the first hearing, we'll have representatives of the state. There will be experts present. We will summarize all the problems. We'll compile a big, thick report, but conclusions will be very short. The main problem mentioned there will be the following. The state is not interested in business. The state is not interested on a very deep basis, but they also don't have formal KPIs for stimulating the business development, neither at the municipality nor at the state level. Ruslan, unfortunately, will have a lot of questions from the audience. We don't want to have a discussion here. We are answering questions. So we'll summarize all the main points in this report. Now we're preparing the program. We decided that we can't make a lot of radical changes at the same time, but we will propose some stimuli, some instruments to motivate inflow of investments, which would create more favorable conditions for those who are working with businesses. I'd like to talk about 2 matters. Moscow city doesn't have trade spaces. That's why there are preferential treatments of foreign companies made by owners of such lands, because owners of land plots are interested in having interesting businesses. So, for example, if you're McDonald's, it's easy to get preferential treatment. This means that those Russian businesses who don't get good treatment, they're not good enough. Everyone knows Kaspersky, for example, and it's very well known globally, and it exports a lot. Next point. The businesses asked us to change the law. Now the law on businesses is law number 44. It was actually created by entrepreneurs themselves, and now it's enacted from the 1st of January this year. The portal of supplier, 16 billion rubles, which are granted to businesses. You could use these funds. If it's not enough, you can come directly to me, and we are ready to listen and make amendments in the program, in the law. If you don't know anything, you can always ask questions. There is an investment portal now which will provide all the information you need. You don't need to travel to different departments. You can find all you need on the portal. So we are trying to help you. But you shouldn't always accuse us of everything. I think that if you come to us You should have not only complaints, but also some proposals. You should explain what would be convenient and what would be interesting for you. I have several suppliers such as Komus or Samson Domodedova. They are in constant dialogue with me. They're explaining what they need and they tell us what they're interested in changing. And you keep complaining that we are lacking some changes. I would like to have a dialogue with you. That's why we're here with you today. You constantly repeat, leave the country, but where would you go? Which country is a good country to leave? I also would like to know, my friends are otherwise, unlike your friends, are returning back to Russia. Okay, let's continue. We have one question from the audience. My name is Baranova Nadezhda. I'd like to support my colleagues businessmen. In my opinion, the city has a wrong policy. The city calculates profit from every square kilometer, from every meter of a trading place. And you don't care how many people, businessmen, operate in the city, 5,000 or 1,000. That's why your approach to businessmen is cruel. I now work in the agricultural production. And a lot of facilities have been demolished. It's very difficult for me to work now. I'd like to support the opinion of Mr. Titov. You can't treat businessmen as they're treated now. I've spent 2 lives to get access to the Minister of Agriculture, and the Minister of Agriculture made a proposal on implementing the rules for selling farming products. We didn't have the necessary trading law related to the systemic access of farming products to trade markets. I'd like to ask Vladimir Vladimirovich to think over the following matter. Now, in the current political and economic situation, we are not actually thinking about agricultural producers. I participated in the auction. 57 square meters. The price was almost 3 million for this land plot, but I'm selling potato, not vodka. So this is my address to the Ministry of Agriculture. I can give you an answer. The premises rented out by the city of Moscow, they are just a fraction of the total number of all the premises in the city of Moscow. If we're talking about the city of Moscow, the businesses are saying that our rates are exorbitant and they're going to ruin businesses, small businesses. Small businesses rent just 10,000 premises. And they actually represent a very small amount. I think preferential conditions are not a good thing because they don't motivate everyone to be more efficient. We don't have premises which are dedicated to agricultural producers. We have the total type, main type, trading premises, and then it's rented by different type of producers. If we could have differentiate such type of premises, we wouldn't be able to give enough premises to all agricultural producers. We wouldn't be able to help you substantially. As Boris said, city is a great businessman as such. Okay, next question from the audience. I have a Question about regions. My name is Ruslan. I'm an owner of the furniture producing company in the regions. We have very high personnel turnover. If they have good salary, higher than the average in Russia, still people want to move to places with better infrastructure, with running water, with good roads. My question is the following. We have the problem with municipality budgets. I pay my taxes, I pay land taxes and income tax. So what do you think? Is this system of municipality budgets and taxation going to change? Are we going to live better in our smaller cities? Moscow is the state of the Russian Federation, is a subject of the Russian Federation. I agree with you. This is a very vexing topic. We have a commissioner for small businesses, Mr. Yemrakov. He works with this topic, and municipalities and governance bodies are not interested in stimulating businesses. Municipalities, those who interact with such companies as your company, they are not interested in it as well. They have to pay for some festivities, and that's mainly it. They're not doing anything else. Of course, municipalities should have powers to develop an infrastructure. We've made several proposals. Small businesses of case should pay taxes directly to municipalities. I support your idea here. Individual income taxes also should go to the budget of the region where a person is registered, because a person lives in that area, and all his parks, kindergartens for his children are there. I see that the representative of Moscow is not very happy about it. How many people in Moscow work in Moscow but live in the Moscow region? A lot. Children live in the Moscow region and their fathers work in Moscow. That's why we need to give an opportunity the person to decide where to pay taxes, in Moscow or in the Moscow region. Unfortunately, low level of civil servants, here the problem of municipality civil servants is 100 times higher. They don't have enough education, and now, for example, we have 6,000 inquiries, record high number in small businesses, but mainly there are problems with municipality authorities. Municipalities are stifling businesses. They are trying to hog the blanket. They are trying to get more land for their children, for their families. They behave like small tsars who are trying to grab all the territories they can. We need to have good stimuli to get money only if you fulfill KPIs, if you ensure the development. Unfortunately, we don't have this system in our country yet. I'd like to add a couple of words. So, for example, we don't have stationary facilities anymore here, but this is a problem of those who own those facilities. But this person doesn't know what's happening in the city as a whole. And I'll try to clarify. If we want tourists to come here, I'm talking about tourist businesses, we need to have good hotels, good trading malls. Then we are not interested in supporting small kiosks, for example. we have the overall concept of developing the city of Moscow, and you can read it. It's in the open access, and you would understand what is our principles of development for the future. That's why businesses should be aware of this and try to work accordingly. No microphone. There is no microphone. I understand what you're trying to say. When you've learned about this, let me interfere. I don't think that other cities copied what Moscow was doing. They simply acquired the idea. Yes, they are demolishing some of the smaller facilities, but the experience of Moscow is more positive than what we see in other cities. What we had in the beginning, the situation was much more difficult when the new team started working. Now, situation has improved. Some of the complaints I had, actually, majority of them were settled. Heads of directorates started simply demolishing everything within red lines and outside of the red lines. But after that, we've grabbed the control of the situation. We had good lists of and different levels of the legal situation, and
шло в рамках
That's why everything was in compliance with the law, more or less. And sometimes the buildings were not located in a proper place and they were in the way of something. But in accordance with the law, everything was okay. That's why we didn't really demolish too much. But of course, there are very few alternatives way. And there are, for instance, legislative restrictions, like closing down all markets. And but sometimes private companies construct new types of trading houses and trading centers. They are not referring to one chain, but rather a more popular way is to construct market buildings where particular companies rent spaces and outlets. I don't think there are centers like that in Moscow, but this is a real alternative, and I think Moscow has not done much in this direction. A brief comment. First of all, the things that the buildings that are put down are the ones that had been built illegally. So let's now compare the environment around metro stations in now and in the past. I think it has changed for the better. I mean, demolishing illegal buildings and structures. This is always done in accordance with the court ruling. And when talking about small business, let's analyze who works at these stores. We have some statistics of law enforcement borders, which states that in the places of unauthorized trading around big metro stations, the level of criminality was by 10 times more than now. We shouldn't forget about that. Now we have some time for yet another question from the floor. Good afternoon. We were really struggling to take the floor. We're from Siberia, and we're not so much interested in the small shops around Moscow metro stations. I represent a tourist club, which is small business. Here are our booklets. Probably some of us may use your services. And but what's your question, please? I have struggled with the municipality for 8 years. And finally, I own these buildings. I am a part of the program to support small and medium entrepreneurship. But however, it doesn't work properly. You receive some small amount, but you may only do it if your staff is 30 people. I disagree with this. I think if the number of personnel is 30, this does not belong to the category of small or medium business. Well, I think please note that fact. I think it's your local specifics. Victor probably can answer this question. Well, I think yes. You have a commissioner for businessmen's rights in Krasnoyarsk area. His last name is Russkih. Please contact him or myself through my website. And I think you better address him, because I can't really resolve your local problem. Thank you. Tomasz, what is your view? You have witnessed this discussion clearly. On the one hand, the authorities aim to change the environment for business, make it more transparent. On the other hand, businessmen need to work and live right now. Your comment, please. Well, first of all, we have had a very interesting discussion. I liked the fact that it was so open, and I think it will be very useful for businessmen and authorities. They may understand each other better now. Thanks. The doing business report that we are drafting now and covers all countries and compares Moscow to other capitals of the world. And this ranking is very important. I think Moscow now should take steps and support Russian administration. And Moscow should become one of top 20 in the doing business ranking worldwide. It's really, we shouldn't concentrate on the rates and in percent, but I mean the rates of rent. But we should generally talk about the measures of support to small and medium business and eliminating obstacles. So what we need, I think, in general, is to restrict restrictions and to let them work and to let them become one of the top 20 in the doing business rank globally. I think another important thing is KPIs. If the mayor of Moscow decides that we need to increase our KPIs and to increase the share of small business, the share of income generated by the small business up to 21%, so it will be the share of their contribution to the budget, he will support them more. Thank you for your discussion. I realize that the questions mentioned today were just a top of an iceberg. But I think we should discuss these questions at similar events. I would request you to become more active, to participate in internet discussions, turn to regional commissioners for the rights of businessmen, and declare your rights. Thank you.